Joining me now to break it all down, Wall Street Journal columnist, a Fox Business contributor, Dan Henninger. Dan, I butchered your last name. Henninger. I know how to say it. I just have trouble as a Southerner speaking English sometimes.
German.
Dan, let me start with President Biden. He is taking credit for the drop in gasoline prices. But the reason that gasoline is down in part is because the economy contracted in the first half of the year. Does he realize what he's laying claim to?
I'm sure he doesn't, because he doesn't realize most of the claims that he does make, such as the idea, remember back when they were pushing $1 trillion spending with Build Back Better, he said the cost would be zero. So the president pretty much says whatever is put in front of him. Treasury Secretary Yellen obviously understands that what is going on with inflation and prices is much more complex than the president is making it out. And to be sure, prices fell because when it got up towards $5 a gallon, people started driving less demand. And to be sure, the inflation rate is coming down a little bit. But the fact is, it is still high in many areas, such as the price of food and household goods. And the reason for that, I think, Dagan, is that the manufacturing process is much more complex, say, than it is for gasoline. You've got complex supply chains that have to be run through. There's a lot of labor shortages along those supply chains. Just today, the CEO of GE, Larry Culp, said the supply chain challenges are very significant. As long as that is going on, the price of the things people pay for most directly, other than gasoline, such as food, household goods, and indeed, I would say in the winter, once again, energy prices, inflation is going to be a political problem for the president.
Well, as the Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote about Janet Yellen, she's last week told some whoppers of her own. She said the causes of inflation are largely global. And they're still trying to point to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But inflation, as the Journal points out, was already at 7.9% before Putin ever went to war against Ukraine.
Well, in the world of Joe Biden and Janet Yellen, inflation is merely a political subject, highly politicized. They're going to make whatever claim they can for whatever marginal decline we get in the inflation rate. The reality, Dagan, is the Federal Reserve isn't listening to any of that at this point. Jerome Powell has made it clear that the Fed intends to get inflation under control long term. And a decline from 8 or 9% down to 6.7% is going in the right direction. But they're going to keep interest rates high, I think, until they get inflation much lower than that for the longer term. But while that's going on, it leaves the president to play politics with the rate of inflation.
Or to make policy mistakes, which they have at every turn on the fiscal side. And I just want to point out this New York Post op-ed that talked about over the weekend, Biden's freeze on oil and gas leases threatens to bring Europe's energy nightmare to the United States. And so the leases in this country under his presidency are the lowest that they've been, based on Wall Street Journal analysis, since dating back to the end of World War II. The Biden leased fewer acres for oil and natural gas drilling offshore and on federal land than any administration in its early stages since the end of the Second World War. But also, if you look at what Britain is doing, for example, the new Prime Minister, Truss, is laying on price caps on what households have to pay for their energy bills. Price controls equal shortages. And so I just wonder about the potential policy mistake that would be another one that'll be coming out of Biden and company.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, Dagan. While on the one hand, inflation is highly politicized, some of the political decisions that this administration makes are frankly mysterious. They are shutting in oil and gas leases. They're doing nothing to enable energy production in the United States. And I think the reason is, frankly, because the climate goals that they have towards renewables and a non-fossil fuel economy are something the left simply will not back off of, and they will not back off regardless of the political price or consequences that may follow. And that's why I'm suggesting that so long as the Biden administration is on this track, the likelihood this winter is going to once again be higher natural gas prices for people and higher utility bills, which were through the roof last winter. But the left in this country doesn't seem to care about that, which is odd because in Europe, the Greens have sort of come around to allowing that they're going to have to return to some extent to nuclear power. The Greens in the United States, they're simply solar, wind, and that's the end of the discussion for them, no matter what the political consequences.
And all of this, and even what the Federal Reserve did, all of this screws over working Americans, middle income, lower income Americans with the, average weekly earnings, or average hourly earnings when you adjust for inflation are down 3% plus since Joe Biden took office, down more than 4%, 4.2%, according to the Wall Street Journal, one of the editorials last week. That inflation screws hardworking men and women in this country. And on the monetary side, the Federal Reserve, because it blew out its balance sheet, it made the leveraged rich richer, and by helping cause inflation, again, crushed working Americans. No, they can't get a break on regardless of where it comes from in this country.
Yeah, and we'll see whether the working Americans understand that come November. I think you're exactly right about the Fed. This is one of the great policy mistakes of the last 10 years. The rich got richer, the working class was hammered. But I think the Fed does understand now that they have to get the rate of inflation down below the wage gains people are realizing, or it will simply erode the average person's income. The White House, on the other hand, seems to be oblivious to that reality, raising the question of just where they think their political base is. Do they actually think it's the working class people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016? Or do they think it's college students and upper middle class professionals that are going to put the Democrats back in power? This is the question that's going to be answered in those midterm elections.
I'm about to knock on the New York Post. The New York Post had this story today about where the rich are investing their money because stocks are in decline. And it was a Hermes Birkin bag or wine. And it made me want to throw shoes. Reading that, because I'm like, okay, if the Federal Reserve actually does its job, all of these inflated assets are going to decline. But it's really rubbing the people who read that paper, it's rubbing their nose in the fact that, the rich benefited handsomely from reckless monetary policy. Final word, Dan.
Yeah, they did. I think it's mainly a post-pandemic phenomenon. People have been locked up for so long, they're just sort of blowing out the spigots with the spending on luxury goods, cars, Hermes, handbags, and eating and the rest of it.
Yeah. If only taking the money away would help you take the pounds off, but that's a discussion for another day. Dan Henninger, great to see you. Thank you so much. Always.
Good to be with you, Dagan.